Mayor.
Okay, great. I call to order the meeting of the Common Council for September 7th, 2021. Clerk?
All 12 are present and voting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have an invocation led by Alder Bill Galvin. Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the
and for the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty,
with
justice for all.
Everyone can just sit down.
4 days will be the 20th anniversary of 9/11. One of the most horrific things to happen to this country in the last few decades. And I just want everyone to, throughout the rest of the week, I'd like you to give thought, if you could just take a minute or two each day, think about the victims of that day, the effects it's had on all of us, even to people today who were never born at that time, the sacrifice of our members of our military, both physically and mentally, and think about how our country has reacted and changed since then, some for the good, some for not so good. And think about how, as we hopefully move forward, we work together and we continue to try and make this the best country in the world, where people look up to us with respect and we earn their respect. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. On to approval of the minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Corpus Dax, seconded by Alder Dorf to approve the minutes from the August 17, 2021 Common Council meeting. Any revisions there, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the minutes have been approved. Approval of the agenda. Motion made by Alder Corpus Dax, seconded by Alder Stevens to approve tonight's agenda. Any changes there? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The agenda has been approved. Report by the mayor. Alder Galvin said this well, but also just wanted to recognize an event that's coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. There is a stair climb. I believe it's the 9th one that's been held over at Lambeau Field. Pierce Manufacturing and then also the Green Bay Metro Fire Department are sponsors of the event. So encouraging everybody to check that out. I think registration is still open for it. So if you're available and interested, would certainly encourage you to attend that event. Otherwise, please, as the Alder said, spend some time and commemorate the tragedy that occurred nearly 20 years ago, and think about all the first responders and innocent lives lost that day. We also have another really important event that evening. The Be the Light Walk is going to be downtown at the KI Center and in the immediate surrounding area with a commemorative walk. It's an event that highlights and gets us all to think about the importance of those that we've lost through suicide in this community and across this country, and so encouraging people to attend if possible. I think registration actually closed last night, but stay tuned to the social media channels and website for details there. That's always a really powerful event, and encouraging everyone to think about that event, attend it if at all possible. And then I just have a couple of notes on the agenda tonight. We hopefully are going to be approving a position related to the creation of the Green Bay Conservation Corps. Excited about that possibility. There's a lot of work to be done in the city and in our parks in particular, and hopefully some beautification efforts across the community in our downtown districts. So hoping that council moves forward and approves that position so that we can go out and retain that individual and put them to work on bringing to fruition a big program in order to employ folks through the AmeriCorps program to be engaged in some of those efforts. So hoping that we'll see approval of that tonight. Another item that's in front of you, I think, has gotten a little bit of media attention is our remote work policy. I think, as is often the case in public sector. You know, we're trailing the private sector in some of the innovations that they've been able to implement with regard to flexibility of work. COVID certainly forced us to move as quickly as possible for health reasons, to make remote work possible. And so certainly want to recognize Director Chronic and Shelby and the entire team at IT for making that possible. Now we're taking the step of sort of formalizing that, putting in place a nice policy that requires participation of frontline workers and supervisors to come to a good agreement, and I think some good safeguards are in place there. But hoping that that council sees the wisdom in that and policy and moves forward with it. And that concludes my report. On to announcements from our council. Alder Gerlach,
I didn't know if I raised my hand or pushed the button, sorry.
either one.
So I, at the risk of telling people something that they already know, I just want to remind us all that the COVID-19 pandemic is not over. In fact, the numbers are going up instead of down, and the outlook is not nearly as good as we hoped it would be at this time. And of course, the meaning of the word pandemic, pan means everything, everyone, everywhere. And so we really are all in this together. And we've now learned that people who are fully vaccinated can contract the disease, have no symptoms, and pass it on to others without ever knowing it. That's why I'm wearing a mask, even though I'm fully vaccinated. And I would ask that everyone inside in a public place wear a mask.
Thanks, Alder. Other announcements? Alder Galvin?
Thank you, Your Honor. As some of you may have seen in the news this past week, and on my Facebook page, a 13-year-old boy was struck by a car on his way to school at Ola Leopold. Even before I ran for office, there has been a loud and demand for a change at that school. I also know, though, from my experience as a police officer, every school has requests for safer drivers in and around their areas. And I think as alders, we all get those calls. Speeders, people that don't stop at stop signs or red lights. And it's a systemic problem in our society. People apparently don't fear the consequences of their actions, or they're too wrapped up in their own lives to pay attention to what they're doing. And I urge everyone, because I'm guilty of it. I've gone by people that wanted to cross the street and I didn't stop for them. And I've got a speeding ticket way back in my early years of driving that my brother still reminds me of. So we're all guilty. We all are. We all lead busy lives. When I used to run traffic around the schools, half the people I stopped were either school staff or parents on their way to or from school. And nobody, no parent wants to get a phone call that they have to go to a local hospital to see their child because they've been hit by a car. And it is an issue. It is a problem. We've had several people hit by cars, pedestrians in this community. And we've had fatal accidents. And so everyone, look at yourself, look what you're doing when you're driving, and try to be more attentive, try to be more careful. Look at your children if they have driver's license and talk to them. You know, look out for other people. Try to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And I promise you that we have been in contact with the police department as alders. We've been in contact with the city engineer for traffic, and we are working on some solutions. But a lot of it is a lot more than what we can do. It's what we can all do. And so try and be part of that solution to this problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Well said. Other announcements?
Your Honor.
Alder Stoyer?
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but Alder Galvin spurred that a bit. So, yes, there are some of the things that we alders are doing, and I would invite other alders to get involved. We're looking to the state to help us with some legislation to possibly get red light cameras and a few other things. So we can't solve every issue all at once, but I think it's important that we at least look for other solutions. So that's one solution. But as time goes on, we will be looking at these things. And that's one of the big things that citizens talk about is speeding and inattentive driving, which is about 2/3 of all the accidents in this community. So that's a high number. It's way too high. So I appreciate Alder Galvin bringing that forward and letting him know that we and a few others are doing some things and to join us in our fight. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other announcements? Alder Brunette.
Sorry, I muted and realized I muted the wrong thing. I just want to welcome all of the school kids throughout Green Bay back to class this year, both public and private. It's nice to see the school buses running. It's nice to see the kids returning to normal activity compared to the beginning of the school year last year. So it goes hand in hand with Alder Galvin and Alder Stoyer stated that the traffic is concerning. I think after nearly a year of having no school and now having school, I think drivers are not used to or accustomed to seeing children on the road, and that's not an excuse. But it's good to see children back and doing well, and I just want to wish everyone in the community a good time at school this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any others? All right, seeing none, we'll move along to appointments. I'll entertain a motion on the reappointments.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Alder Johnson, seconded by Alder Galvin to approve the reappointments. Any discussion here? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The reappointments are approved. On to the new appointments. Motion made by Alder Johnson, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the new appointment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that new appointment has been made. On to ordinance's second reading for adoption. Motion to adopt made by
Second.
Alder Galvin, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion here? Seeing none, we will use the board.
Thank you. Alders may vote.
Alder Gerlach, you can vote verbally.
Okay, I approve, yes.
Alder
Mine's not
Gerlach,
mine's not showing. I'll say yes.
Thank you.
Alder Gerlach
And Alder
also,
Gerlach?
Yes.
Thank you.
and that ordinance is adopted 12-0. On to the report of the Finance Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Johnson, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Any items here to be handled separately? Number one. Any others? Item 1 will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of
Number 6.
numbers 1 and 6 will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of items 1 and 6. Your wishes on item 1? Move to approve. Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Item was pulled by Alder Dorf.
Yes, I was hoping that Susan House would be able to make the presentation that she made in finance to all of the alders. I think it's really important that the alders and the public have a deeper understanding of the American Rescue Plan Act fiscal recovery funds and the ways in which they can be used. So is Susan in the house?
Ms. House, are you on the line with us?
I am.
Very good.
Okay, Ms. House, I will give you the opportunity to be a co-host so that you can share your screen. Hold on one second.
And for those of you who don't know, within the city or the public, Susan House is our grant administrator, whose principal role is really overseeing the American Rescue Plan Act, a huge undertaking for many municipalities across the country, including our own. So looking forward to her presentation tonight, and appreciate the fact that she's on board with us.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Okay, perfect. So, again, I'm Susan House. I'm your grant administrator, and I'll be providing a very high-level look at the American Rescue Plan Act, or the ARPA SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. This SOP is how I'm going to be doing my job. It is not what you all will be spending the money on. This is basically a behind-the-scenes look, or the processes of how I'm going to be doing my job. What we are spending the funds on is a future discussion. We have public engagement process that's going to be led by the mayor, 2 public hearing sessions, and a survey that will help guide how the funds will be used. This SOP, again, is just on my scope of work, not the projects that will be funded. I do welcome any feedback or any improvements to this SOP that you may have. So I apologize for that slide that was added after the fact, and it should not be in. But if you would like to know, basically these are the categories of the ARPA fund: to respond to public health emergencies, to respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency, for the provision of government services, and to make necessary investments in water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. This, I apologize, is not in your packet. This was added after the fact. So first, the SOP is based on the information taken directly from the Treasury Compliance and Reporting Guidance document. This table shows the internal controls best practices. I will quickly go over the table and how we are in compliance with this process. On the left, you will see the best practices listed. The center is the description, and then the third column is your example. So for the city, for the SOPs, we do have several in place. For example, the procurement manual and the grants SOP that you currently use. This ARPA SOP that you are reviewing today, again, just how I am doing my job, is another example of how the city is compliant with this process. The second, written standards of conduct and the risk due diligence, those are both check marks for the city. Purchasing has a document for subcontractors that would be used with the ARPA funds as well. And that's just making sure that there is no conflict of interest. And the risk monitoring is the role of the project manager and myself. And the record keeping that we will be doing, we'll be staying in compliant. The ARPA funds records have to be kept for 5 years after the last payment, or after the Office of Inspector General, the OIG, does their audit, if there is an audit. We are going to be so on top of this that we will not have an audit, and we will be able to complete our records 5 years after the last payment has been made. The next page is page 1 of your packet, but I'm not sure which page of the packet it really is. This is the purpose statement. Basically, we're complying with the CFR 200 internal control section and with the Fed's best practices listed on the prior slide. The first purpose statement states that we're going to administer these funds to projects and activities that are consistent with the goals of the city. We're going to administer in an efficient manner. We will host evaluations, or we'll have evaluations, and will not exceed the annual percentage of the funds that are approved annually by Common Council. I will explain the annual approved percentages in the next slide. The second purpose statement is just like your grants SOP that you already have on file, and it just says that we will comply with Office of Management and Budget Super Circular. Page 1 and 2 are definitions that may not be common terms. These definitions are just to help make things clear as we start spending. Moving on to page 3, which is at, I believe, page 17 of your packet, the policy statements is like the grants SOP that you already have on file, basically states that this SOP pertains to all agencies or departments within the city. This is in place so that we have a uniform process on how to disperse these funds. Page 3 also talks about the procedures for the funds. I'm proposing that there will be an allocation plan that is approved annually by the Common Council. You can find the draft or a sample on page 9 and 10 of your SOP or page 23 and 24 of your packet. Again, this is just a draft. These are not real allocations. These are just things that I put in the screen to make sure that the formulas all worked. Basically, you can see as you work your way across, you'll see a dollar amount and a percentage for year 1. This is the allocated per category per year. As you go across, you'll see that the amounts for year 2 and 3 are just projections. As we go through each year, you will see which category didn't spend, which category may need more funding for the following years. And I will provide those assessments so that you can make informed decisions for year 2 and 3. This process will help keep us from overspending and will allow us to fund activities and projects in each category without having to wait each year for the project to be approved. So we're basically putting money into each category that, based on the public feedback and based on the data that we have, we will put it in each category. I will bring that to you. You have the data there for you. You can make your decision or refund, and you will be able to see which category is spending and which one is not spending at all. Page 4 and 7, 4 through 7 of the SOP explain about the reporting and the record keeping that I have to keep, that I'm responsible for doing. I will also be providing reports to Common Council and to my supervisor, and will include outcomes of the projects. The expense of it and the outcomes will be important for the alders to be able to tell your constituents that this is where the improvements have been made, improvements to quality of life. We've improved this neighborhood because of this project. We were able to bring this item to this neighborhood. So you will be able to state that to your constituents with data and with dollar amounts. It is important to note on page 7 at the bottom of the page, it discusses the procurement manual or the procurement director. This is taken directly from the procurement manual, and the procurement manual and the IT director are both have been notified and are both okay with these statements. It's important because we do not want to spend the funds on something that will not work with our network, or it will not be too costly to make it work on our network, or could damage our network. So we need to make sure that both the IT director and the procurement director are okay with any software or that type of project. The last page is the references that were used for this SOP. And then any questions that you may have. And again, this is just on how I am doing my job, the behind the scenes work of the ARPA funds. How you're going to be spending the funds, what projects, that is going to be in a future discussion when, once we finish the public engagement piece.
All right. Thank you, Ms. House, for the presentation. That was very informative. Really appreciate all the work that you've put into the process thus far. Looks like Alder Dorf has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, for the, the edification of myself and the public, what I think I heard was that the 4 areas that we can spend the money on, public health is one, essential workers, provision of government services, and investments in infrastructure. So when we roll it out to the public, are we going to have like some little examples under each of those just to make it a little clearer? Because those are really broad, I think, broad categories. I was just wondering how we're going to explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can answer that. And Susan, if you'd like to weigh in, feel free to do so. But yeah, we're planning to have some explanatory language that goes out along with the survey. Some sample categories or some examples of where you might be interested in allocating these resources, but then we'll also have kind of an open-ended, question at the bottom so that people can be a little bit more free-flowing if they feel as though the questions didn't capture exactly what they're looking for. But it is important to keep in mind that, that there are these strings attached by the federal government. There are specific uses for this funding that alders and members of the public, should certainly keep in mind. There is that revenue loss calculation that is open to the city. And so that pot of money is a little bit more flexible in terms of what it can be used for, but in terms of the approved categories, Susan, I think did a really nice job of walking through them for us.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Alder Stoyer.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned this survey will be coming out, and I don't know if you've already talked about that, but as far as a time frame, when some of these things we might be able to see coming forward, do you have that?
Yeah, in a matter of days, the survey should be available, and then we'll also be publicizing the roadshow dates that will be focused on not just the ARPA dollars, but also our city budget. We've been doing that, every year since I've come on board, as take it sort of on the road, at least to the east and west sides. I think last year was just a virtual event, but this year we'll be back out east and west sides, inviting comments both on the city's budget and also the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. So hopefully by combining them, we'll get a little bit more interest in activity.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor to,
Mayor, I was going to add, there might be one or two citizens that might want to chime in here. Is that all right? I'd like to open the floor if I could. So that'd be my motion.
motion has been made by Alder Shore to open the floor. Seconded by Alder Weary. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open.
The citizens
Thank you.
mentioned.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. If you would like to speak, please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the council. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the item of the ARPA funding from the finance report? If so, please unmute yourself and state your name and address. Last chance, anyone wishing to speak? Thank you very much.
Motion has been made to close the floor, made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Entertain a motion on the item. Will we have a motion to approve? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. On to item 6. Entertain a motion here. Entertain a motion on item 6.
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion has been made to go to a closed session. That was made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. Alder Scannell, can you read the language, or does someone else?
I believe I can.
Go ahead.
The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 1 subsection G Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The committee will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 2 Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda.
Thank you, Alder. So we will use the board on that motion.
Thank you, Alders. You may vote.
All right, and that vote succeeds 12-0. We are in closed session.
So what room do you think they were in? Is that protection and policy?
They can't,
Alder
No.
Scannell?
No,
That table?
Alder
What room
Scannell?
do you think they were in?
I don't think they
207.
can hear us.
Alder Stoyer, can you hear us?
yes.
Okay.
Hey, Bill?
Hey, Randy, everything you're saying is
Nicely done, Alder.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Motion has been made to return to open session by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are back in open session.
I'd like to move that we proceed as, or that the Claims Committee proceed as directed in closed session.
Alder Dorf makes a motion for us to move forward as directed in closed session. That was seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And we are on to INS. Motion. Alder Gerlach makes a motion to approve the report of the Improvement and Services Committee from August 25th, 2021. The motion was seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Any items here to be held separately, handled separately?
Number two,
Number two,
and Alder Wery, I don't know, number three as well. Alder Wery is, I don't know.
okay, just number two, says Alder Weary. All right. Item two will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item two. Your wishes on two? Motion to approve made by Alder Weary, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. The item was pulled by Alder Weary. You have the floor.
I think Alder Stoyer.
Do you want me to, Alder Wery?
Yeah, Alder, sorry, move ahead, sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Some others may want to chime in on this as well. This is a lot more for clarification, and Director Grenier can hopefully help me out on this. I was kind of looking through some of the things. I know that a couple of years ago I looked at our PASER report, and we had 2017, 2019. First of all, I'd like to ask, have the numbers been brought forward for the 2021 PASER report yet? And if not, are those coming out soon?
2021 PASER report. I believe the rankings are complete.
Okay, will that be accessible to council and others sometime soon, or, just checking on a time frame?
All you need to do is request it.
Okay, well, that's good. I appreciate that. Just a few things here. I was looking at all of the districts over time, and there were 1,256 road segments in the PASER report from 2019 that needed work on some of some sort. This year, 22 of those 1,256 have been done. They're either finished or about to be finished this year, and that's according to a February 1st memo from Public Works. So I just wanted, a couple of questions. So they were resurfaced, 22 road segments were to be resurfaced in Green Bay according to your memo in February. How many of these segments have been finished or are slated to be finished this year of those 22?
Alder, I don't know what memo you're talking about. That's not something that was in the packet, nor was it discussed at the committee.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the projection question answer session from February 1st, 2021. Are you saying that that's nothing to do with the meeting at all? There were 22 different roads that were looked at, and with their conditions being 3 and 4. And I'm just wondering, they're obviously the meeting with that. So are you saying that that's not to be included in anything that we're requesting at this time, or what?
I'm saying what you're asking are questions that weren't part of item 2 nor part of item 3. I'm happy to discuss that stuff with you, but I'm not
Okay.
prepared to do it tonight. That's not what these items are about.
All right. Okay, well, I'll have to do that at another time. I apologize. If there's,
Give me a
Right,
call in
okay.
the office. I'll be happy to go through that stuff with you.
all right, well, that's fine. But I was just wondering if Alder Weary, he had might have had a concern too on the 1.45% versus 1.6%. I guess the question I had is, with the monies that have been raised from the wheel tax, how much of that has been utilized, for these resurfacing this year? Are we within reason? Do we have enough money to cover that, or are we're still bonding and getting, asking for more for road resurfacing?
The money that's being generated by the vehicle registration fee does not come anywhere close to covering either our resurfacing or our reconstruct program. That's in the memo that we send out every year.
Right. Okay. Well, and I just was wondering, what kind of discrepancy are we looking at? Is it fairly large? I mean, is there any way to put on that?
Well, in excess of $6 to $8 million a year is what we're still in deficit.
Okay.
The amount that we're bonding for.
Okay. So the wheel tax has put a little bit of a dent in it, but not nearly what maybe some of the perception was that it would cover a little bit more.
Correct. The wheel tax is currently covering, a couple of years ago, the blacktop materials for pothole patching and the crack sealing materials that used to be part of the budget were moved out of the budget and have been covered by the wheel tax for the past couple of years. The primary function of the wheel tax fund has been to cover what used to be assessed against private properties. That is currently being covered by the wheel tax. And then it helped contribute somewhat toward the increase from the 2018 or so program up to the current level that we have, but it doesn't come anywhere close to actually covering that.
Well, I appreciate that clarification, and I know this has been talked about in the past too, but I think over the course of the year, we get many requests from citizens and such, and we're just trying to get a handle on it, that's all. So with these other questions, I will contact you separately. So
Awesome.
that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alder. Alder Weary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this has been obviously something we've been discussing for years and years. It feels like, obviously, roads and road work, I'm sure every municipality does. And I thank you, Director Grenier, for putting together that report. It's the numbers and the data that I think we really needed so that we can see where we're at and where we want to go. It's less, and I'll admit, I was disappointed. It's far less than I thought we were doing. I thought we were around 2%. And to see we were at 1.45 was kind of disheartening when De Pere's doing 3.5, almost 4% some years, so, or most years actually. So I'm not saying we have to be there, but it's nice to have a goal where you can inch towards it. And when you see it all laid out and you understand that it's not just us, it's the water department and it's the sewer, you have to coordinate. So we might want to jump 1% or 1.5%, but what that does to the others, it's just not, it's not financially feasible, quite frankly. And the reason we went from the 1.45 to 1.6 is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Grenier, you said this is what your staff could absorb. I think you said maybe 1.65, is that correct? This is what your staff could absorb internally as far as planning and supervisory?
Again, we're talking in general terms. I think we might be able to. We're definitely going to give it a try.
Because, and as part of our discussion, also yearly, we will track what percentage we're doing so that we don't dip below that. I would hope we wouldn't, and that we can inch and push it forward, whatever amount it is, to get to 2% or higher and do more. Because people really want their road work done, and when they see we're doing such a small percent, that's hard to justify. I would hope we move those items out of the wheel tax now, those pothole filling and other items, so that we can put it towards the extra money towards extra road work. I think that's what everyone really thought it would be for. I'm fine with what we have tonight. It moves us forward. knowing that we've got a long goal ahead, hopefully, and thanks for your work. Obviously, I'm not totally happy with it, but knowing the parameters we have to deal with, it's realistic right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Johnson?
I think it's prudent when talking about this topic to have a discussion about math. And as Director Grenier alluded to, that means you have.
He's muted.
No. I think we can hear it.
Can you hear it now? No?
No? Do you want to try that one?
I can't.
Test.
Nothing there?
Nothing.
Okay, better? All right.
Now I can hear you.
So as I was saying, I mean, when it comes to the discussion about this issue, I think it's prudent for us to have a conversation about math. And as Director Grenier alluded to, if we were to go to 3%, the proposed, and as Alder Wery discussed it, improvement in services, just a number he kind of picked out of the air, you're looking at about another $6 to $8 million per year that would be a gap that we'd have to fill. And when you start to think of, this was one of the reasons, folks, you may recall, when we passed the wheel tax, that one of the contingencies that was put on that motion was the creation of a 5-year capital improvement plan so that we could start to look into the future about what it would take for us to make some significant financial decisions that oftentimes can't be made from year to year. Now, when you're talking about $6 to $8 million, there's a few things that are working against us, which is expenditure restraint, hey, this is going well, huh?
Levy limits?
Levy limit, thank you, Mayor. Expenditure restraint, levy limits. And unfortunately, with those two things in play, we still aren't even going to raise the amount of money that's necessary. So that means really our solution is to see a substantial cut in other programs or services that we offer at the city level. So the reason I'm sharing this is because, and I know this is kind of a gaffe statement, but I don't believe that this is a solution that's going to be fixed at the local level, or a problem that's going to be fixed at the local level. And there's a lot of papers out there right now, white papers. If you talk to a lot of other municipalities throughout the state, they're all kind of going through this same struggle right now. We've seen a significant reduction in shared revenue and state funding. Obviously there's an infrastructure bill discussion that is occurring at the federal level, but really we need to start to look to our state and federal representatives. And this isn't about making excuses. I do like the fact that we can start to migrate and move towards what we can control at the local level. But what we can control at the local level, as you're seeing based on the amendment, is 0.15%. 0.15%. That's what we can do based on the constraints that we currently have imposed upon us. So I hope that when we're having these 5-year discussions, that we're starting to think about what that message needs to be to our elected state and federal representatives to really ensure that we can secure an appropriate amount of funding to keep us on a better path. And I'm not saying that it has to be a percentage, right? 3%, 4%, whatever that might be. I think there's a lot of factors that go into this that aren't necessarily about percentages. But I think clearly the condition of our roads, I think, is universally accepted that we need improvement there. How we get there is really where the gap is, the chasm that needs to be fixed. And I think at the local level, we can make a 0.15% decision, but we really need to figure out how we're going to appropriately engage our other elected officials to close that gap. Thank you, Mayor.
Agreed. Thanks for those comments, Alder. Other questions or comments from council?
Mind if I stay here?
All right, seeing none, we do have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. The ayes have it. And that item has been approved. On to protection and policy.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, entertain a motion first. Motion to approve made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any items here to be handled separately? Item 1. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 1. Your wishes on item 1?
Second. Can't hear you.
Alder Johnson makes a motion to grant the license. Seconded by Alder Vanderleest. Item 1 was pulled by a few folks, but I heard Alder Johnson first, so we will go to him.
Thank you, Mayor. I watched this discussion at Protection Policy, and it was a good conversation. And I certainly understand where the perspectives are coming at from this on both ends. The one thing that I would like to remind council of is that we are still, as was pointed out to us earlier today, that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. And in addition to the operation of businesses, there's a conversation about how you move properties. And we all know and understand that the ordinance indicates that the city staff has to make the recommendation to deny it, but Protection and Policy, as well as this body, have routinely overridden those default recommendations. On May 7th, 2019, this city council unanimously approved a license for Van Boxels. And you may recall they were in a similar position. 11 members of that council are here today because we only have one new member of this council that was not a member at that time. And we unanimously granted that license, even though they were in the same circumstance. That circumstance being that the business was non-operational, but they were attempting to sell the business, and it makes that property more marketable when it comes with a license. Now, this type of establishment in particular, if you're familiar with commercial property, it is you need alcohol sales. The math doesn't work otherwise. That's how these properties are profitable. That is an item with a low cost, high margin. You cannot pay for a space like that on food alone. And so I think recognizing that the pandemic is what contributed to the closure of this business, recognizing that there's an opportunity for us to exercise some grace here and recognize that they are actively marketing this property and that they have had buyers look at it, but the value of this disposition is dramatically altered when the license is not assigned to it. And I think, we made the decision here to waive those liquor license fees for 1 year because we knew how hard it was hitting that industry. We've made decisions to expand patios. We've made decisions to add parklets and create outdoor space so that these types of facilities can survive. So recognizing the uniqueness of this situation, I would hope that we would reflect upon the decision we made in May 2019 with a similar request without a pandemic that we unanimously approved, and I would hope that we would do the same thing today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Alder. Any other? Alder Dorf?
I have just a few clarifications I need. Back when we made that recommendation, Alder Johnson, do you remember, were they planning to reopen it themselves?
They were attempting to sell the
They were
business at the
attempting
time.
to sell the business. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. And the other question I have is because I attended this meeting and listened, and I thought that a license doesn't automatically go with a property, that whoever purchases the property also has to ask for a license. And so I know part of this is around keeping that license available. And looking at it, we have 6 licenses available right now. And so that it could go either way. We have plenty of licenses for other people if they want them, or if we decide not to allow this, then there's 6 licenses available. But I'm more of the opinion that I would like to to keep the license with the property, with a clear understanding, though, that it isn't really with it. it still has to be applied for. It's just making that extra license available along with the other 6 licenses that are available. So, and I also wonder for legal, is there any legal reason why I shouldn't take the stance that we should allow this?
Attorney Chavez, anything to clarify or add?
I would defer to the clerk with respect to the license itself. The only thing I can say is that, the standard is that the property needs to be in operation. And so this is waiving that standard.
Thanks, Attorney Chavez. Anything to add, Clerk Jeffries?
No, I don't really have anything to add. Thank you very much.
Okay. Alder Scannell? And then
Yes,
Alder
thank you,
Story.
Your Honor. I'd just like to dig in a little bit deeper with, staff's recommendation to deny. They're just doing their jobs. They're not offering an opinion. They're not saying this is a good idea or a bad idea. It's like when they deny an operator's license. They're just following the law. They really have no opinion and aren't stating an opinion. That's for us. That's our job. The law allows us then to interpret the law and discuss the circumstances and make a decision accordingly. So I fully support Alder Johnson, that it would be a lot easier for this business to sell the business if the license is out there, knowing that a license is out there for it, than if there isn't. And certainly COVID has made a difference in all this. So I think we are more than justified as a council to grant the license to the cannery. So I support that.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Stoyer, and then Alder Brunette.
Yeah, that was a really hard at our committee. And both sides made some good points, but there was a tragedy with the owner, passing, and then the pandemic's been there. Granted, there are 6 other licenses available, but I think one of the issues is it's, who knows? They could go quickly. They might take a while. That's a roll of the dice. And I think, I voted to give them the leeway to get back on their feet that way. So I'm thinking, my hope is that they can do that. I'm not sure if the attorney is here, that if she is, that she could speak as well. If she's not here, I'm not going to open the floor. But she had some things that she could add to this discussion as well. But I concur with Alder Scannell, Alder Johnson as well on this. So
Thanks, Alder.
that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Brunette?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alder Johnson and the others. I just want to remind the council we had a similar situation. I know each situation is a little different, but it was very similar in that I had a business on Mason Street that in the early days of the pandemic, unfortunately, was not sustainable much longer. And this was on May 19th in the city council. I can't say if it was unanimous at the time, but we voted to allow the license to stay with the property so that it would help them, sell the property, knowing that liquor license is either secured or relatively secured for whoever were to purchase the property. That was May 19th. Sadly, May 19th, 2020, sadly that business is still vacant right now. So I think COVID has changed a bit, and we gotta, at times like this, as long as we don't cross an ethical boundary that we shouldn't cross, I think that we need to extend a little bit of leeway to businesses during this environment. We're still not out of COVID, and I'm definitely in favor. And we don't have to go back to 2019 like Alder Johnson said. We have something, relatively recent in that it was 2020, a little over a year ago. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Vanderleest.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in favor of, giving the people that are trying to market this property the tools so that they can find a tenant there. That's the main issue here, that everything that's in place will help them, find a tenant much easier. And we're just being helpful as far as trying to get this property rented. So I would definitely support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Gerlach?
Mr. Mayor, I've been waving my hand, I've been trying to speak, so I'll wait.
Okay,
Let me
Alder
know.
Gerlach and then Alder LaFave.
I just want to be really clear, just a question. So if this property if the license stays active, is renewed and is sort of like tied to the property and the property is sold, the new owner still could be denied a liquor license if he or she was not found to be appropriate for that license, correct? Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay.
Thanks, Alder. Alder LaFave and then Alder Galvin?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I voted no. The reason was because I guess they had someone who was interested in the property, but something happened, it did not go through. So now they have to go through the whole process trying to find someone again. And I think with I realized with the pandemic ratcheting up again, that I think this property is going to sit there for quite a while. Even with a license, I don't think right now who's going to open up a restaurant or a bar with all the COVID. There'd be very few people, I think, interested. That's kind of why I voted no, but I could always change my mind. But I just wanted to I've tried to get in the closed session. Somehow my video went. So I couldn't, and I was on mute, so I couldn't speak. So I will let Clerk Jeffries know what my vote would have been. I could hear everything,
Okay.
but I couldn't see anything or participate. So I'll let her know what my vote would be.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Alder.
Alder. Just email me.
Okay.
Alder Galvin?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not sure if I've made up my mind yet, although Alder Johnson's reminded me I've already voted for this in the past, so I don't know if that necessarily means I'm supposed to do it tonight, or if I admit I made a mistake in the past, and I'm correcting that mistake. But at one point in time, my job was to represent the police department at the protection and policy meetings. And back in those days, there were rumors going around that people that own these businesses were hanging on to their licenses, and they were jacking up the sale price of the business because if you don't pay me the price I want, you don't get the license. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here or that it has ever been proven, but there were some strong rumors to that effect going around the city. We were told at one time that, well, someone took this building and it was built, designed, everything was in it was for a bar, so what else can it be but a bar? But many of those same buildings at one time were other types of stores. And someone put the money in to turn it into a bar, and so why can't someone buy it and put it back? What would our attitude be if tomorrow 6 people showed up looking for licenses and only one of them could get it, and they were ready to open up businesses? What do we tell them? Well, there was one, but it's sitting on this empty building over there trying to sell it. Now, fortunately, I don't think that's going to happen, especially as everyone's been talking about COVID. And our purpose in having these licenses is to have viable businesses, bringing people into our community, generating tax dollars and business and jobs for people. But I just want everyone to just take a second and think about some of these things that have happened in the past and could potentially be affecting other people's businesses in the future. Now, I understand the family that had this business, they went through a tragedy. I understand that COVID has affected many of it. I mean, we reduced the licenses, the cost of our licenses by quite a bit to try and make it more palatable. We've done a lot to try and make it more viable for businesses, not only in COVID, but even post-COVID, to be more viable in this community. But I just think we need to be cautious that when recommendations are made to deny, there's a reason for that. There's a business in this town that opens up every year just enough to satisfy the requirements for the license, and they shut down for the rest of the year because they've been trying to sell that business for quite some time, and they haven't been able to. Now, people who are against a lot of bars in this area might say, great, there's one license that's tied up and it's not available. Others might think differently. So it's easy to get on that, hey, we did this back in 2019 and we did this back in 2018 and everything else, but just because we did it then doesn't make it the right thing to be doing all the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of granting this license signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Aye. Aye.
The ayes have it. And that item has been, or that license has been granted. On to report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses. Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any names to be handled separately or any abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those are approved. On to the report of the Plan Commission. Motion to approve the report of the Plan Commission from August 30th, 2021, made by Alder Corpus Dax, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any items here to be handled separately? Hearing none. All in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. Park Committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Galvin. Any items here to be handled separately? Number two. Any others? Item 2 will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 2. Your wishes. Motion to approve made by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Dorf. The item was pulled by Alder Brunette.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want the city council to know I approve of what the Parks Committee and the Forestry Department presented at the committee level. This moth is an issue, just like emerald ash borer, and for some of us who have districts that are heavily wooded, it's yet another invasive species or pest that is decimating some of our very good forest or tree cover. So the reason I pull this was just to, as a courtesy to a constituent, comment that she, at the end of July, walked around the neighborhood and received well over 60 signatures urging the city council to do something. So for those who did not watch the committee agenda, basically, or the committee meeting, basically staff went through and explained the life cycle of this moth and that there's not a whole lot that can be done, but they're going to be examining the situation into the fall and will be presenting back to the committee. So I have the petition here for the treatment, and please be aware that you're going to get more of these calls in your neighborhoods as well as emerald ash borer. So of all the issues we deal with, we can probably agree that this is not high on the list, but certainly think we need to develop an action plan to address it, which I think staff did. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alder Lefebvre.
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. What does this moth go after with trees?
Director Ditchite or someone from the Parks Department?
Oaks. Goes after oaks.
The common name for this moth is the gypsy moth. And so they go after oak trees.
Okay. Then I understand. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alder. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The item has been approved. Personnel Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Johnson. Any items here to be handled separately? Number 3. Any others? Item 3 will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. Your wishes on item 3. Motion to approve made by Alder Galvin, seconded by Alder Stevens. The item was pulled by Alder Vanderleest.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like a little more information on how this process is going to work on the remote work policy.
Director Faulds?
Yeah, sure. Really how it works. Is there some echo?
I think you're good.
Okay. Really how it works is it's a case-by-case basis for each position. The employee will meet with the supervisor and talk about the days they can remote work and what projects they can get done. And the supervisor will evaluate it, and they'll determine if remote work is right for the position or not. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Alder Vanderleest?
That gives me the information I need. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Alder Brunette?
Yeah, thank you, Director Fultz. I reviewed the document and went through the minutes of the meeting, and you obviously thought it out quite well. One question I have, though, over the course of a year and a half, when many of our employees have worked from home and have had remote work options, have you had any increase in instances where worker productivity or disciplinary action or missed deadlines from all of the departments? Is there more of that sort of evidence that would suggest that remote work doesn't work for some people or programs or departments?
Overall, we have not had more evidence of productivity going down or individuals being disciplined based upon remote work. There have been conversations with different divisions about how remote work might not work for these positions and why, might be because it has a lot of face-to-face communication with the public, or they have to be in the field certain times of the day. But overall, generally, it's been productive and very efficient for our employees.
Okay, thank you. Was this policy modeled after another municipality or perhaps the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, or was this created entirely in-house?
Yeah, so prior to March 2020, I reached out to the city of Appleton, who's had this policy in place for some time. And that's really the municipality that it's modeled after. And then after a year and a half, this is kind of the policy we've been following. It wasn't formalized, but really we had a conference just recently, an HR conference, where a law firm talked about the do's and don'ts and kind of legal pitfalls of it. So we've had a lot of time to look it over and kind of mold this policy to fit the city of Green Bay needs and also the legal liabilities that we could face.
Director Fultz, within City Hall, the different department heads, you don't have to get into specifics, obviously, but were there any concerns from department heads? Is every department head pretty much on board with moving forward with this?
Yeah, I haven't heard any concerns about department heads not wanting to move forward with it. We did have training in the May of this year, in May of 2020, May of this summer, we had supervisory training where we asked supervisors to reach out to employees and ask them if they had any questions or concerns. And then we had a training with HR where we talked about kind of the do's and don'ts and the pitfalls of this and what to look out for. So after that training and with senior staff, there hasn't been any issues that have been brought to my attention that people are against this policy.
Local government's all about people, serving people. We have to be innovative and kind of match the market trends. I understand that. But Director Fultz, if we go ahead and vote yes on this and move forward, you as HR Director, if there are any concerns, any feedback that is negative, will you assure us as a council that you'll bring that to our attention, so we can look at this at that time?
Absolutely. And I would ask, if the public is listening or hears us too, that if they have issues or concerns about the service and the timeliness of service at public or at City Hall in person, that they should bring it forward so we can address it. I don't think one or two concerns are going to have us throw the policy out, but we do want to address it and make sure that we are providing timely and customer-friendly service to the public.
All right. Thank you, Director Fultz. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Stoyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Director Fultz, with this policy, do you have a number out there for the number of city employees that we have and what number are working remotely at this time? Or is that changing week by week, or just give us a little handle on that?
Yeah, so we fluctuate around 900, 950 employees, and then, police and fire are in transit, take up a lot of that. So we have, I think it's about 200 employees at City Hall. And if you look at those employees, most, if not all of them, are eligible for remote work. So it's probably about 200 City Hall employees, give or take maybe, 25, 50 more on different locations can remote work. So I think at any given moment, maybe it's about a third, 25% to a third of those employees are remote working at once. So it's a week-to-week adjustment. What we've talked about was a hybrid model where some employees are working at home and some are working in the office. And that really started as kind of a COVID-19 precaution. Now we're trying to just move that forward with the hybrid model of, maybe half employees in the office and half working from home.
Well, thank you for that. I think part of it is just looking at efficiencies of city government. I worked for the city for quite a while, and just having that face-to-face contact, of course, is very important. But granted, we've had a situation in the last year and a half that we can't do it as much. So I'm just wondering are there people or workers out there that are staying at home or where have you doing their job? Do they have that alternative to come back into the building if they'd like, or do you have the parameters set up because of COVID that mask up, this, that, and the other thing? Is there leeway for workers to come back into the building if they so desire?
Yeah, absolutely. At this time, everyone can come into the office and work, and we could have 100% in a department due to vaccinations, social distancing, wearing masks. So we're allowed to do that. And this policy is not deterring anyone from working in the office. We have some employees that do not want to work from home. It just works better for the situation, and they're more than welcome to work in the office 5 days a week. This is just an option for people if they want to work a hybrid model of some days in the office, some days at home.
I guess one last thing is that, there are certain positions at the city that are a little more intense as far, inspectors, some public works employees, different things like that where, they need to be on hand much more so. There might be some jobs at the city that don't require that as much. So I guess, I'm just trying to get a handle on that. And, I appreciate the work that you put in on this policy, along with, Appleton and others that worked on this. But I suppose over time that can change. But for now, this is what we have. Correct?
Yeah, there's definitely positions that cannot work remotely. My lights went off. But for those positions that can't work remotely, like if you're fixing the road or if you're inspecting a home property, it's hard to do if you're not out in the field doing that. So we know that it's a case-by-case basis. And
right. I think as long as the positions are covered, the jobs are being covered, and we're still functioning as a city, then I don't have a big issue with that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments? Alder Weary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my concerns were expressed by Alder Burnett as well. However, I worked from home most of the past year and a half, and I found myself to be more productive personally. There were less distractions, but this is a lot of these roles hopefully aren't window facing where, you need to talk to someone. I'm sure we can work that out, and it's going to be really dependent on the supervisors to keep people on task. Now, I wasn't going to speak, except that I did hear, Director, you mentioned something about vaccines, and I don't know what that has to do with working from home. If you could expound on that comment.
The question that was asked me is if employees are able to come back into the office. And I said, based upon, people being able to get vaccinated, social distance, and wear a mask, they can work in the office if they want to. That's all the comment was.
Okay, so it had nothing to do with, vaccines aren't required to work in City Hall.
No, they're not required at this time. And I don't know the stance that we'll have on that. It's changing on a daily basis. It's been changing for, a year and a half. So at this nation.
All right, I just wanted to clarify where you were going with that because, certainly on a different note, I hope we never do require that. I think that'd be the wrong direction to go. But I'm in favor of this remote as long as it's used prudently, and if there's any problems, bring it forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Alder Lefebvre.
I want to thank the director for bringing this up. I think this is important. This might also be a tool for retaining our because there are those I bet are going to be concerned about the what's going on. Wearing a mask sometimes too is hard for some people. If you have asthma, I've had some asthma, but I do wear mine. But some people, it's not conducive, for them. So I really applaud them for doing this. I think this is a good move for our city, and it shows that we do value all our employees. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. All right, seeing no other comments, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been adopted. Report of the Public Arts Commission. Motion to approve the report of the Public Arts Commission from August 25th, 2021, made by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any items here to be handled separately? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the report has been approved. TBMP? Motion has been made to approve by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Stevens, and that's the report of the Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission from August 16, 2021. Any items here to be handled separately? Hearing none, all in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the report has been approved. Sustainability. Motion to approve made by Alder Gerlach. Alder Weary would like to hold, that's the only one here, so, we will, or what are your wishes on item 1, first of all?
I'm sorry, Mayor, who seconded the motion?
We're just gonna discuss, since it's only one item, the item has been pulled by Alder Weary, so we're gonna go right to that. Is there a motion? Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Item was pulled by Alder Weary.
And I know right now it's just being referred to staff. If you could allow a question of the person who submitted the request, Alder LaFave, I believe. Is the purpose here to have a guideline on idling, or is it to have an ordinance forbidding idling in like drive-throughs and such?
Alder LaFave?
No, one was to have a ordinance, and it's very, if people, it would have to be a good campaign to let people know why. There's a very good reason why you do not want to idle any more than you have to. And for drive-throughs, I turn my car off, I turn it back on, move forward. And actually, that is more economical. You use less gas and you pollute a lot less. When you idle, you pollute 10% more with the car. So it's very important, and there's so many cities that are doing this because they're seeing, if we want to be, we have our sustainability committee and we're talking about green energy and all these things. If we want to really do something, then I think this is one good way that we can do one simple thing. Everybody can do this. And this is basically, it'll be for people with older cars, because if you have a new car, I found out that actually when you step on the brake to stop, your car, it doesn't completely shut down, it kind of shuts down. And then when you pass, it starts again. So all the new cars are doing this, no idling, actually. But we have a lot of people who have older cars. My car's older, it does not do that. So this is something just to help us as a city.
All right, I appreciate it. So it would be more of an ordinance then. You're looking at the city to enforce it, to somehow, I don't know, have our police department, I guess, enforce idling on private property drive-throughs. And that's what I had thought. So I'm going to make a motion actually to receive and place this on file and not refer to staff.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, no, we're not going to have people out there finding people. This is going to be a campaign, and as people understand more the reasons for it.
Point of order, is it not an ordinance? Do we not enforce them then?
Well, yes
Okay.
and no.
So,
It's up to the business, I guess.
oh, so it's not an ordinance.
Your Honor, if I may,
Alder Weary still has the
I
floor.
just want a clarification. Ordinance, we enforce. We don't put an ordinance in place because we may or may not do it. That would be horribly wrong. And, oh, you can speed on some streets and not on others. So I think if we want to have some kind of push from this committee or the city, whoever, that, hey, you might want to consider doing this, and maybe even get some businesses involved to say, hey, put some signs up and say, hey, why don't you consider doing this? Great. I think that's the way to do it. I don't think you have government come in and do the heavy hand, because people will laugh at it and just say, you're not going to enforce it anyway. And when we do, it's going to seem very arbitrary. So my motion is to receive and place it on file. Thanks.
Alder Weary makes a motion to receive and place on file this item. Is there
Point of clarification, Your Honor.
Alder Scannell?
That is not actually what is being referred to staff. We had this discussion at the commission, and it was a very comprehensive discussion about exhaust and CO2 emissions, and that what is being referred actually is for staff to come up with a comprehensive plan on how we can reduce those emissions. So it's not really looking at just this specifically, but how something like this can be included in a much more comprehensive plan on reducing emissions. So we're not really looking at an ordinance. We're not looking at this specifically to do anything, but to put it in a bigger package is what was referred from the commission to staff.
Thanks, Alder. I mean, I think it is important just to note the fact that if this body were interested in adopting a policy that would apply to the community, it would have to be in the form of an ordinance. At that time, that, this would be a policy that would be discussed by our council. But just to kind of clarify how that could play out. Any other questions or comments? Alder? No? Okay, so we do have, a motion was made to receive and place on file this item. I believe that is in order, even though we had a motion to approve. Attorney Chavez, if there's a second for that, does that need to be dispensed with?
Yes.
Okay. So motion has been made to receive and place on file by Alder Weary. That was seconded by Alder Vanderleest.
Just want to make one comment, Mayor.
Alder Vanderleest, go ahead.
I think there need to be more discussion. It's kind of, not really laid out too well here. If they're talking about city vehicles idling, there's a lot of city vehicles and they can put equipment on them so that they will, achieve that. I think it's, premature to, to approve it at this time. So that's why I'm seconding the motion to receive and place on file. I don't think the homework has been done here. If we're talking about city vehicles or we're talking about private vehicles or every vehicle, I think there's a lot more homework to be done here before they bring anything forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder.
You're an idiot.
Alder Gerlach and then Alder Scannell.
A question, if I vote against receiving and placing on file, what am I voting to do?
Then if that were to fail, then there's still the motion to approve and refer this item to staff.
Thank you.
You bet. Alder Scannell?
I would just address the point raised that, more discussion needs to be done. That's why it's referred to staff. There's no action being taken here, other than to refer to staff to get this more fleshed out and come back with something. And it'll be much more comprehensive than just cars idling. So I believe it's important that, staff take this up and look at what we can do as a city to reduce our exhaust emissions here. That's all we're doing, is referring it to staff to come up with something. We don't have anything yet. We're not voting on any specific action. So, thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Stoyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. I concur with Alder Scannell on this only because, I looked at the petition that was brought forward by Alder LaFave, and it just mentions about an idling ordinance. And I think that kind of was the trip word looking at that. And I can understand why that, hello, somebody talking? Anyway, that was the trip word for me, just looking at that. And I feel that if we can bring it back, and discuss it further, at another time, I feel that's the way to go. So, thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments on the motion to receive and place on file? Hearing none, all in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
I think we will use the board. And again, this is the motion to receive and place on file.
Alders Johnson? Alder Johnson, can you vote or tell me how you'd like to vote?
Did you hear Alder Johnson? He was a nay, clerk.
Oh, no, I did not hear him. Thank you.
And so that motion fails 10-2. We have a motion to approve. That's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. On to the report of the Equal Rights Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any items here to be handled separately? Number three, any others? Item 3 will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 3. Your wishes on 3? Motion to approve made by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. The item was pulled by Alder Brunette.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of on the fence whether I wanted to even talk about this because I don't want it to be misconstrued in what I'm trying to say, but thank you for forming this committee. Look forward to good work. I did watch the meeting and I did review the minutes because I'm very interested in this work. I think diversity, inclusion, both wonderful, absolutely incredible things that we should advocate for and push in the city. Completely on board with diversity and inclusion. Equity, I don't want to get in a political, philosophical rant here, but if we're looking to really unify and we're looking to create an inclusive and diverse city, which I believe we all know is a great, incredible goal for us all to aspire to, but in political terms, the term equity oftentimes gets misunderstood and gets into some ideological battles. And I want to make sure that we talk about equity in terms of fairness, that people are treated fairly in the city, that there's equality of opportunity. But sometimes equity in the political realm, when we have fights and conflict, can be misconstrued as equality of outcome. Equality of outcome is entirely different from equality of opportunity. So I read and I study and I listen to both views of this because as a member of the city council and as a member of this community, I want to make sure that we're all pushing and pulling in the same direction. And in times of political times, if we can use the right phrasing so that we all can come to some level of agreement, I think equality, diversity, inclusion, wonderful. But if we're going to use the word equity, we need to make sure that we're talking about equality of opportunity. Quality of outcome means different things to different people. So I'm not going to micromanage the commission. I doubt they care what I have to say entirely in some of these issues, but I commend the work, and I know Alder Corpus Dax is going to do great work there, but I look forward to good discussions because I think we all need to do better and want to do better in this area, but I don't want it to become a political battle, ideological battle. I just want to make sure that the phrasing and terminology is consistent. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments or questions from council?
Just Alder.
Alder Stewart?
Mayor. Thank you, Your Honor. Alder Brunette, are you looking to possibly change that word to something different or what, I look at equity, I don't quite get the meaning that you're bringing forward, but I can see how you can take any of the certain words and you can ask 10 people and they might all have a different opinion. So, I don't know, are you looking to change that to, what did you say, for opportunity? How did you say that? Equality of opportunity? Is that something that you would look at, or is this just something that you'd want to change? You'd want to change that?
Alder Stewart, thank you for the question. Again, I don't feel there's any need for me to make any change or recommendation. The people in this commission or educated and experienced in a variety of different topics and bring something to the table that I do not bring to the table. So I don't want my words and comments to be misconstrued as a criticism, but I'm really looking for unity and looking for good community discussion across every political ideology and perspective. I'm just saying in some circles, when the people hear the word equity, they think in terms of equality of outcome, which, means different than equality of opportunity. There's a reason why people want to be the best in their field, or there's a reason why people want to be the best in athletics or the best in academics or the best in every aspect of life. So in that regards, if a person pushes towards those ends, they should have the equality of opportunity to carry forward with those things. But when we hear quality of outcome, that means that the outcome is that everybody is equal. And I just don't think human nature is designed for everyone to be completely equal. So again, I'm parsing words. There's no need for me to change anything. I was going to bite my tongue, but maybe I had an ounce of courage to kind of bring this forward. We need to talk about these things honestly as a society, as a country, because ideologically we're divided. And I'm trying to, through my conversations with a variety of people on these topics, I just want to avoid the acrimony, and I want to make sure that we can not carry forward ideological agendas, that we're really thinking about every perspective, and that's one perspective that I want the commission to be aware of. No, so, and again, I'm not dictating to them. They're fine people, and they're going to do great work. I just wanted those comments to be heard. Thank you.
Just a quick point. Just a quick point. I still have the floor. I concur with that. I'm glad you brought that forward. But as an alder, as a person in this community, I will work toward that end. So I appreciate you bringing it forward for discussion. But I think we're a big city, we're a big community. We need to keep moving forward. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes, we're going to have to bring that forward, but yeah, I didn't even think of that way. I just want to quick mention something. Being on the county board, I received the county, Wisconsin County Association's and in there, they were just talking about this. And I thought it was really interesting how and it's exactly what I thought it would, the word equity. They showed an example of 3 people reaching for the fruit of apple tree. Well, one is tall and he can reach it. The second one can barely reach it. The third one can't reach it at all. The next picture they showed, all of them are standing on a box so that they can all reach the apple. And that's what I thought it meant. And I think most people kind of think of that way. But I'm glad it's brought out here. And as you said, Alder Kirk Stacks is on the committee, and I think she can bring that forward to the committee. So I thank everybody for this.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and that item has been adopted. Receive and place on file.
Motion.
Motion has been made to receive and place on file the building permit report for August 2021. That was made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been received and placed on file. On to Committee of the Whole. This is the item that says consideration with possible action on the extension of licensed premises at 1265 Lombardi at the request of Green Bay Sports Service for the purpose of hosting a special event, a free concert. So I was wondering if our clerk might be able to offer some introductory comments, just letting people know why this is in front of the whole body.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So the reason why this item has come before you is really a consequence of timing. The application for their special event was made in such a way that the Protection and Policy Committee could not consider it, and the council could not consider it before the event would take place. I believe this is the 3rd time that the Packers, with the under the auspices of Green Bay Sports Service and also Delaware North, have hosted a free event for the public, basically to celebrate the opening of the season. The police department and the special events committee, the police department's on the special events committee, has worked very closely with the PACO organization et al. In the past, and we anticipate that this will be a great event. They do need to have an extension of their licensed premise. The map is included in your packet. And as far as the police department is concerned, the clerk's office, the law department, the request for the extension of their premise is appropriate. So I would give you that information as you consider, and certainly if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Clerk. Motion has been made to approve by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any questions or comments for our clerk or any city staff? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. Resolutions. Motion to approve made by Alder Galvin and seconded by Alder Dorf. This is a resolution drawing final orders to contractors for August 24th, 2021. Any questions or comments on that resolution? Seeing none, we'll use the board.
Thank you. You may vote. Alder Burnett,
I'm a yes. It's not coming up.
thank you.
Thank you.
And that resolution is adopted unanimously. On to ordinances first reading.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf to take up those ordinances with one roll call vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended.
Motion to advance.
Second.
Motion to advance those items made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those items have been advanced to final adoption. Petitions and communications. Any communications? All right, seeing none, adjournment. Motion to adjourn made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.